fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to wrongThe facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation. We are focused today on really the single most critical decision impacting your cash flow and your long-term herd stability, precision breeding and the rising beef on dairy market.
And this is a deep dive you cannot afford to miss. We're unpacking the secret math, the actual research that determines if your beef on dairy strategy is generating, $6,215 a month in profit, or if you're setting yourself up for the industry's most catastrophic liability, a $4,000 replacement heifer bill. It all comes down to reproductive efficiency.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because the market is just screaming at us. We're operating in a time of what we're calling dual scarcity, and understanding both sides of this coin is, well, it's essential.
It really is.
On one side, the U.S. beef cow herd is absolutely tapped out. I mean, USDA data confirms it's at a 64-year low, sitting at just 27.9 million head. The number is staggering. We haven't seen inventory this low since 1961.
It creates a vacuum. A huge vacuum. The beef industry is desperate for inventory, feedlots have bunk space to fill, and they just can't wait for the native beef herd to rebuild.
No, they can't.
So they are turning to us, the dairy industry, as their primary, most reliable feeder calf supplier. That desperation is what's driving this unprecedented premium on the beef cross calf.
That's the scarcity driving the opportunity. But then on the flip side, we have our own internal scarcity issue, which is the hidden liability. Dairy heifer inventory is also at a historic low 2.5 million head. That's the lowest since the USDA even started tracking that specific metric back in, 2001? That tight supply is the ticking clock.
And that tightness means that the cost of failure is astronomical. If you miss producing a replacement, you have to go out and buy one. And a springing heifer right now, we're seeing them anywhere from $3,000 up to, $4,150 for top-tier genetics. That is a massive penalty.
But the opportunity is so intoxicating. We are seeing current beef cross calves selling for a staggering $680 up to $1,160 a head. You can see why farmers are chasing this check.
Oh, absolutely. And I saw that same report you did out of Ontario. Christophe Wan, the specialist from Omafra, reporting prices hitting $15 per pound. $15. That translates to $1,500 for a 100-pound calf. He said he felt like he was talking about blueberries, not bull calves. That's how ridiculous the demand has gotten.
I love that quote. It's perfect. But here's the shtick, right? Everyone is looking at that $1,100 check, but they need to look at the math that justifies taking that risk. Farm Bureau data shows a huge majority, 72% of dairy farms, are now using beef genetics on at least part of their herd. It's become standard practice.
It's the stampede. Everyone is doing it, which, makes me immediately skeptical.
And you're right to be, because the research we're about to dive into, this foundational work from Dr. Victor Cabrera's team at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, it proves that for herds below a specific non-negotiable reproductive performance threshold, there is actually no viable beef on dairy strategy.
And that's the controversy, isn't it? The majority of that 72% could be flying blind. They're eroding their long-term herd stability, gambling with a $4,000 replacement bill down the line, all because they saw that short-term, that $1,100 cash infusion.
It's solving a cash flow problem by creating an accrual accounting disaster.
That's it exactly. We have to look past the immediate check and really look at the actual math.
Absolutely. The math is the gatekeeper, and this model forces honesty. Let's get into it. Segment 1, the core math. Reproductive efficiency is the gatekeeper. So the brilliance of Dr. Cabrera's team wasn't just in calculating, the calf revenue. It was in integrating that revenue with the overall biological stability of the operation. They created a decision support model called income from calves over semen costs, or ICOSC.
ICOSC.
Right.
It's a crucial metric because it captures the true cost of breeding. It strips away all the milk price volatility, it ignores feed costs, it isolates the economic efficiency of your reproductive program.
Which is what you need.
And here's the key part. It factors in the opportunity cost of not producing a replacement heifer you actually needed.
That opportunity cost is the $4,000 elephant in the room. By calculating that liability up front, the model determines if your breeding strategy is truly sustainable. They tested 30 different breeding strategies, mixing sexed dairy semen, conventional dairy, and beef semen, and ran them against 3 starkly different levels of reproductive performance, all defined by the 21-day rolling pregnancy rate, or PR.
This is the roadmap. I mean, you need to know which tier you fall into before you even think about signing the next semen contract.
Let's start with Tier 1, high performance. This is the top 10%, maybe 15% of operations, defined by a pregnancy rate of around 30% or higher. They are settling cows fast and efficiently.
And the economic outcome here is staggering. For a typical 1,000-cow herd in this category, the monthly net calf income generated by a strategic beef program is exactly what we teased at the top. It's $6,215. That's pure profit from their breeding decisions after accounting for all semen costs and, critically, their replacement needs.
It truly is the $6,215 dividend, and it's paid entirely on reproductive efficiency. It's not a beef dividend, it's a fertility dividend.
Exactly.
And their optimal strategy is fascinating because it is so highly selective. These herds have what the researchers call excess fertility. If they use conventional dairy semen across the board, they actually end up with a surplus of heifers they don't need, which just congests their heifer barn and inflates rearing costs.
They're almost too good at their job, you know? So the optimal strategy shifts from just producing replacements to maximizing genetic gain and profit.
Exactly. They use surgical precision, they use expensive sex semen only on the most genetically superior animals, which they've identified through genomic testing. We're talking first service heifers and maybe the top 20% of first lactation cows. This secures their pipeline with elite genetics.
And then the remaining 60 to 70% of the adult cow herd the animals with lower genomic merit or those later in their productive life.
Yeah, the ones you don't necessarily want a replacement from.
They can go straight to beef semen. And that's how they maximize the calf premium while maintaining genetic advance and herd size stability. They're effectively running a dual factory, optimized by fertility.
Right. Now, let's look at Tier 2, mid-performance. This is where I think most solid average operations probably sit, consistently hitting a pregnancy rate between 20 and 25%.
And this is where the story changes completely. The economic advantage drops, and it drops steeply. For that same 1,000-cow herd, the advantage falls dramatically to about 2,001 one-others a month. Still important, but less than a third of the potential profit from Tier 1.
And the strategy has to shift because their margin for error is just razor thin. They no longer have that massive fertility cushion to fall back on.
Not at all.
So the optimal strategy requires much more aggressive use of sexed semen.
You can see the shift in priority here. They have to use sexed semen on heifers, obviously, but also aggressively on first service primiparous cows, those first lactation animals.
Why they're specific?
Well, because the genetics on those young cows are critical to the future of the herd, and if they miss a conception, they just don't have the pregnancy rate buffer to catch up later.
So they're hedging their bets, they're committing more of their capital, the expensive sexed semen to replacement production before they can even think about shifting to beef semen on later services or on older cows. They have far less flexibility to cash in on beef.
Right. If they gamble on beef semen on a first lactation cow and she doesn't conceive, that cow stays open longer and they've potentially missed generating a future high-value replacement. That $1,000 calf check looks pretty weak when you're carrying a 180-day open cow.
And then we hit the harsh reality check. This is what defines whether that 72% of the industry is operating sustainably. Tier 3, low performance. This is defined as a herd with a 21-day pregnancy rate of less than 20%.
And the outcome is the headline everyone needs to hear. $0. Not viable.
Let's spend some time on this. Why is the viability zero? I mean, why is there no viable strategy for using beef semen at this level of performance?
Because, fundamentally, at a 15% or an 18% pregnancy rate, your herd is struggling just to keep up with its natural culling rate. Even if you use 100% conventional dairy semen, you're fighting a constant battle against herd contraction.
So you're essentially already short on inventory before you even consider cashing in on a beef calf.
Precisely. So Every straw of beef semen you use in that Tier 3 category is not a profit maximization move, it's an inventory deletion event. You trade that necessary future replacement heifer for an $800 calf check today. But then 2 years from now, you have to buy a replacement for $4,000 just to keep the lights on and maintain the same number of milking stalls.
You just lost over $3,000 on that exchange.
Instantly. It instantly wipes out the premium and throws the whole balance sheet deep into the red.
The researchers put it so simply. The $6,215 profit is a dividend paid on reproductive efficiency. If you don't have the efficiency, you don't get the dividend, you get the replacement penalty.
It's all about sequencing. You can't build a structure that relies on future stability on a broken reproductive system. If you are Tier 3, your first dollar should go toward fixing why your cows aren't settling, not toward buying premium beef genetics.
That message, fix your fundamentals first, leads us perfectly into the uncomfortable industry reality check in segment 2. Let's talk about the sheer volume of the shift.
The stampede is enormous. Beef semen sales hit 7.9 million units in 2023. That is 31% of all semen sales to dairy. 31%. And we know 72% of farms are using beef genetics. This is now standard operating procedure.
And the external projections are just massive. Ohio State economists are estimating that beef on dairy could account for 15% of total U.S. cattle slaughter by 2026. This isn't some pilot program anymore. It's a structural transformation of the entire beef supply.
But this is where the skeptical farmer in me, the one who looks at the parlor data, not the glossy magazine ads, gets nervous. If 72% are adopting this, but historically the average national dairy herd PR is closer to that 20% to 22% range.
Which is right on that edge.
Right on the edge. That means a massive portion of the industry is sitting firmly in that dangerous Tier 2, or worse, that crippling Tier 3 category.
They are fundamentally misaligning their strategy. They're making decisions based on cash flow temptation. That $1,100 check is real today, but the $4,000 liability is accrual, meaning it hits 2 years from now. It's a very human mistake, prioritizing the immediate gain over the deferred cost.
It's the definition of ignoring the hidden liability. You are intentionally creating an internal inventory shortage that, in today's market, is punishingly expensive to solve.
And the inability of the industry to recover the replacement pipeline quickly is the other crucial element of this heifer crisis. That 2.5 million heifer inventory low isn't just a number. It explains why replacement prices are so volatile and so high.
The problem is the lag time. A heifer born today doesn't give you a gallon of milk for 24 months. The shortage we're seeing right now in the springing heifer market is the direct result of breeding decisions made 2 or 3 years ago when the initial rush to beef really started. We are paying the price for past decisions that prioritized immediate calf revenue over pipeline integrity.
And you simply cannot rush biology. Even if the entire dairy industry slammed the brakes on beef semen tomorrow, it would take 2 full years just to get those replacement calves into the milking herd. Analysts don't expect the national beef herd inventory to recover meaningfully before 2028, which means this window of high calf premiums and crippling replacement costs is going to last for years.
Which means the stakes of using the wrong strategy are higher than ever. And I want to revisit that point from the UW research about the cushion because it scared me when I first read it. The models showed that even a 1,000-cow Tier 1 herd, the absolute elite, 30% PR operations, produces only 1 extra replacement heifer per month beyond what is needed to maintain herd size.
1 heifer buffer. That's like having 1 spare tire for the whole farm.
It's minimal. Think about what 1 bad event does to that cushion. 1 mild outbreak of metritis during a heat-stressed summer, or a slight uptick in pneumonia in the calf barn, and you lose 5 calves in 1 month. Suddenly, you've erased 5 months of your replacement buffer. You're short. That fragility should make even the best managers cautious.
So the recommendation from serious consultants, the guys looking at the data, not just the check, is non-negotiable. You must keep at least 25% to 30% of your breedings strictly allocated to replacement production. This is your insurance policy.
And that 25 to 30% is a minimum recommendation. If your PR is lower, or if your culling rate is high, say 40%, that percentage needs to be significantly higher. Or you need to use sex semen on those allocated breedings aggressively. You have to secure the pipeline first, period.
We saw that cautionary tale play out in real time with a specific tie stall operation we've talked about. They were seduced by the high calf premiums and shifted almost 80% of their breedings to beef. They likely fell into that Tier 2 category, thinking they had enough of a cushion.
They found out they didn't. When spring arrived and they needed to maintain their herd size to fulfill their milk contract, they realized they were short 10 heifers. And when heifer prices spiked past $3,500, the cost to purchase those replacements, just to stay even, totaled over $35,000.
Yeah.
That one purchase bill completely negated their beef calf premiums for the entire year.
They essentially paid $35,000 to generate maybe $10,000 in net calf profit. The bottom line of this segment is that profitability is measured not by the calf check, but by the stability and long-term security of your replacement barn.
Don't let the short-term rush create a long-term structural failure. It's a cash flow drug that can mask a deep inventory disease.
All right, let's talk about the money in segment 3, but specifically the demands of the downstream buyers. Because the margins are massive, but the market is becoming highly sophisticated.
Well, we already covered the astronomical current premiums, $680 to $11,060. What's crucial for high-performing farmers is that even if the market deflates significantly, the strategy remains sound if they are Tier 1 or 2.
That's the structural advantage. Back in 2021, Cabrera's original model, when beef calves were only worth about $225, calculated the break-even point for high-performing herds at just $69 a head. Mid-range herds hit break-even at $100.
That means current prices are 10 to 15 times that original break-even threshold. Even if that premium dropped 50% tomorrow, if that $1,100 calf suddenly sold for $550, the strategy remains extremely economically sound if you have the reproductive efficiency to back it up. The margin is huge.
The market dynamics are strong, given the lack of native beef inventory, but the quality demands are rising fast. This isn't the Wild West anymore.
No, it's not. We need to acknowledge the total transformation of the dairy steer. The traditional, discounted Holstein steer is rapidly being replaced by the body animal, the crossbred, typically Angus dairy. And the feedlots are paying because these crossbreds offer better muscling, superior feed efficiency, and importantly, they achieve higher quality grades than traditional dairy steers. They simply perform better on the rail.
But that leads us straight to the big trap, the black hide fallacy. When this trend started, the feedlots just needed a black calf, and cheap Angus semen was sufficient. It just signaled the animal wasn't a pure Holstein.
That era is over. Now, feedlots and packers are incredibly sophisticated. They're not just buying a color, they're buying a carcass with a history. They are demanding raising with intent.
And intent means data. They want specific EPD's expected progeny differences for terminal traits. For the dairy farmer listening, EPDs are essentially the beef industry's version of your genomic report card. They are predicting how a bull's offspring will perform.
They want high numbers for carcass weight, which tells them how heavy the finished animal will be, high marbling scores for better quality grades, and crucially, ribeye area EPDs. Generic, cheap Angus genetics just won't cut it. If you're using low-quality semen, you are creating a black Holstein, an animal that looks the part but doesn't have the growth or yield potential. You're leaving $200 or $300 a head on the table by choosing cheap semen.
And traceability is now currency. Buyers are paying true premiums for farms providing vaccination records, detailed colostrum protocols, and verified weight documentation. They want to de-risk their investment from day one.
Which brings us to the single biggest technical challenge in the supply chain, and the thing that could cause the entire market to revolt if we don't get it under control: liver abscesses.
This is a crisis point. It's estimated to be a $30 million problem industry-wide due to lost organs, slowdowns, and yield reduction. Research shows abscess rates can hit 50 to 70% in some large-scale beef-on-dairy groups.
50 to 70%. I mean, compare that to 10 or 20% in native beef. That huge discrepancy points directly back to our dairy calf management practices.
Let's detail the mechanism because this is where the dairy farmer holds the key. The root cause is linked to the common goal of promoting rapid rumen development in the young calf. Farmers feed high-starch starter rations.
The intention is good, but if that ration is too high in rapidly fermentable starch and insufficient in effective fiber, fiber long enough to stimulate cud chewing and saliva production, the calves develop subclinical acidosis. The pH in the rumen just drops drastically.
And that acid is corrosive. It damages the lining of the rumen wall. Once the wall is compromised, specific anaerobic bacteria, primarily Fusobacterium necrophorum and Truparella pyogenes, leak out of the gut and get into the bloodstream.
That blood flows directly to the liver where the bacteria lodge and swarm those pus pockets, the abscesses.
Yeah.
And for the packer, this is a nightmare scenario that affects their entire bottom line.
First, they have to condemn the liver, which is a lost saleable organ. But much worse is the line speed slowdown. If the abscesses are severe, they cause adhesions, literally sticking the liver to the diaphragm or the spurt stake. That requires extensive carcass trimming, reducing yield, and massively slowing down a line that moves thousands of heads per hour.
Cargill, JBS. They are extremely aware of this yield drag and slowdown. This is the kind of system failure that will lead to future industry-wide price discounts if we don't get proactive management in place. This is where the premium fades and turns into a penalty.
So what are the actionable countermeasures for the dairy producer? It's all about nutrition and early intervention.
We need to look at nutritional strategies focusing on rumen stability. Yes, using 27% protein milk replacers helps general health. But specifically, you need to manage the starch-fiber balance in that starter. Ensure you have adequate physical fiber, not just ground hay, but fiber that forces rumination to naturally buffer the rumen.
And we are seeing feed additives play a huge role. Incorporating specific probiotics helps stabilize the rumen microbiome. Furthermore, strategic use of feed additives like ionophores, which are common in beef feedlot rations, can directly inhibit the growth of Fusobacterium necroforum in the rumen, reducing the risk of leakage and abscess formation later in life.
If we don't fix the acidosis problem on the dairy farm, in that calf rearing phase, the packer will absolutely charge us for that management failure down the line.
And speaking of yield drag, the dressing percentage, the amount of hot carcass weight relative to lave weight, is another key specification.
It absolutely matters. The big packers have noted that dairy cross cattle often dress lower 60 to 61% compared to native beef, which averages around 63.5%. That difference creates a tangible yield drag, and it's a primary reason why they might temper prices compared to purebred beef. We need to focus on genetics that close that gap, emphasizing muscling and fat cover.
So, to summarize the segment, the margins are incredible, but the market is rapidly becoming merit-based. Quality, genetics, traceability, and a verified health status are now non-negotiable requirements for capturing the full premium. Let's shift into segment 4, strategic imperatives. If you're serious about capturing that $6,215 profit, you have to run a brutally honest farm audit. We have identified 4 non-negotiable numbers every farmer needs to know before placing the next bulk semen order.
Number 1 is your actual 21-day pregnancy rate, not your target, not your best quarter. You mean the rolling 12-month average. This single number is your gateway. It determines whether you are in the $6,215 tier, the $2,001 tier, or the $0 tier. If you don't know this number, you are gambling your herd stability.
Number 2. Replacement allocation. Are you dedicating a non-negotiable 25 to 30% of your breedings to guaranteed dairy replacements? You need to audit your heifer supply by age group and compare that supply directly against your herd's 12-month culling rate. That buffer is your cheapest insurance policy against that $4,000 replacement bill.
Number 3, genomic cutoff. This is where we apply science to take the emotion out of breeding decisions. Genomic testing runs about $40 to $50 a head, but it allows you to identify the lowest genetic merit animals, say the bottom 10 or 15%, based on an index like the Wellness Trait Index or the Net Merit Index.
So the practical application is this. You set a hard line. Every animal below, say, 120 GTI gets beef semen, guaranteed. Every animal above gets priority for sexed semen or high-value conventional dairy. You are breeding your best to dairy and your rest to beef based on objective data, not just what cow looked good in the headlock this morning.
And number 4, actual calf premium. Stop reading the optimistic auction reports from across the country. Look at your own checkbook. Is the premium you are actually receiving for your beef calves really $900, or is poor timing, weak marketing, or a low-trust buyer relationship reducing it down into that $350 to $500 range? If you're at $350, you are perilously close to the break-even point, especially if you also have to buy replacements.
That leads perfectly into the contrarian take. This is the Bullvine's core mission, challenging the hype. For herds below that 20% PR, the Tier 3 operations, the capital should absolutely not be spent on buying high-fertility beef semen.
I'm not buying that. No way. If I have $500 to spend, I shouldn't be spending it on beef semen. I should be spending it on fixing the reason the cow isn't getting pregnant in the first place. That capital needs to be redirected to improving reproductive fundamentals.
So you're saying spend the money on transition cow management, better heat detection technology, maybe switching from tail chalk to a robust activity monitoring system, or investing in synchronization protocols like double offThe.
Exactly. That capital provides a far better long-term return. Think about it. If I'm at 18% PR, every dollar I spend on semen is likely wasted because the cow isn't ready to settle. But if I spend that money on better fresh cow care and I go from 18% PR to 22% PR, I just moved myself from the $0 category to the $2,000 a month category. Then the beef opportunity is there and it will wait for me. That is a massive return on investment in fundamentals.
That is the responsible, long-term approach that secures the herd's future. Now, let's discuss the strategic deployment based on the tiers, because it's highly nuanced.
For the mid-range herds, those 20-25% PR herds, you absolutely must use sexed semen on your first lactation cows. That pruniparous cow is your critical high-value replacement buffer. You cannot risk a bad conception by switching straight to conventional or beef on that first service. Secure that high genetic future lactation first.
And for the high performers, the 30% PR herd, their focus should shift almost entirely to optimizing the beef side. They should be using the highest possible terminal indexes when selecting beef bulls. They need to prioritize carcass weight and ribeye area EPDs because their replacement needs are already securely met.
And here's a critical nuance often missed. Even high performers should not cheap out on beef semen. Choose high-fertility beef sires. A cheap straw of beef semen that fails to settle the cows, costing you massive dollars in lost conception days and extended days open. You want the cow pregnant quickly? Whether she's carrying dairy or beef, fertility always matters.
Finally, let's talk about biosecurity as an asset, because this is where a farm can really differentiate itself and guarantee future premiums. This is about building trust with your downstream buyer.
Buyers are terrified of disease risk, particularly BVD-PI bovine viral diarrhea, persistently infected. If you implement universal ear notch testing on all your calves and you market your beef calves as BVD negative verified, you have immediately created a high-trust asset that feedlots are desperate for and will pay a premium to acquire.
And it comes down to consistency in care. Ensure your beef on dairy calves receive the exact same high-quality colostrum protocols and vaccine schedules as your replacement heifers. A calf with failure of passive transfer today is an abscess risk tomorrow, and that failure will hurt your reputation with your buyer far more than any short-term premium gained.
That reputation is worth more than the $1,100 check you get this month. It secures the buyer relationship and your access to that premium market for the next 5 years.
All right, that was a dense dive. A farmer just finished milking, they're driving to the feed store, thinking about their next semen order and how they can access this market responsibly. What are the 3 things they need to remember from today's deep dive?
Takeaway number 1, know your tier. It determines your reality.
What you need to do tomorrow, pull the actual 21-day rolling pregnancy rate, be brutally honest with the data, and use that single number to decide if you belong in the $6,215, the $2,001, or the $0 profit category.
The 90-day plan. If you are Tier 3, that's sub 20% PR, you need to halt aggressive beef semen purchases right now. Invest that saved capital into improving heat detection protocols, fresh cow management, or synchronization. Fix the cow before you breed her to beef.
The long game. Only after your PR is consistently over 20% and you've proven you can sustainably maintain inventory, should you design a limited sustainable beef on dairy program, the market opportunity will still be there.
Takeaway number 2, secure your pipeline first. The $4,000 penalty is real.
What you need to do tomorrow. Count your heifers by age group and compare them to your culling rate. Ensure you are targeting 25 to 30% more replacements than you need to maintain herd size. That margin is your safety net, especially with the industry running so low.
The 90-day plan. If you find you are short on that margin, you must allocate sexed semen not just to heifers, but to your top genetics first lactation cows, especially if you are in that precarious 20% PR tier. That is your most valuable female asset.
The long game. Treat replacement heifers as your most valuable asset. The cost to raise an extra heifer, around $2,200, is the cheapest insurance you can buy against having to pay $4,000 plus for a purchased replacement. Overproduce replacements and sell the surplus for guaranteed profit.
And takeaway number 3, get smart on beef genetics and health. Stop wasting capital on generic black hides.
What you need to do tomorrow. When purchasing beef semen, stop buying generic black hide bulls. Use terminal indexes focusing explicitly on high carcass weight and ribeye area EPDs. Demand quality genetics, not just color.
The 90-day plan. Implement universal BVD-PI ear notch testing on all calves, dairy, and beef. Market your beef calves proactively as BVD negative verified to potential feedlot buyers. This health status is a massive premium opportunity and builds long-term trust.
The long game. Utilize the free dairymgt.info calculator to model your replacement needs and profit margins against various beef deployment ratios. Use the science to commit to the ratio that fits your specific PR before you sign that next bulk semen contract. Don't guess the stability of your future herd.
This has been another Bullvine podcast from the Bullvine Podcast. For more straight-talking industry analysis, including the data behind these fertility tiers and the full Cabrera report, head to www.thebullvine.com.
Subscribe wherever you get podcasts. We're out with new deep dives every day, and upcoming topics include the rising role of artificial intelligence in monitoring feed efficiency and the latest on regulatory changes concerning whole herd testing and disease management. We'll talk to you next time.